The hazards that live the life of downtrodden, where bombs and gunfire become a part of everyday life. Fear becomes constant and hope no longer exists. The hazards are being targeted for the pure fact that they are hazardous. Which led into my first thesis, the conflict among groups forces tension in Africa. But I wanted to be more specific, and so then I changed it to the persecution of hazards has caused conflict in Afghanistan. And then to relate it to the story, and I got even more specific, was in Afghanistan, the genocide of the Hazara people has caused unwelcome living conditions. Throughout the Kite Runner, relationships form that show how Hazaras are being treated. Relationships that form show how being a Hazara can change the way you are treated. The building up to the genocide of the Hazaras was started even before they were singled out, with bombs and shootings becoming a part of their everyday life. And the media has done little to let us know what's happening in Afghanistan with the Hazara people. They have done little reporting, letting the Hazaras down and us down. Why worry? In the past 10 years, they have had to defend themselves against 120 reported attacks. That's not including the unreported ones that go without anybody noticing. And that's at least one attack a month. The children are not immune from these attacks either. They're 1 out of every 3 deaths as a child. The mystery of why people can't figure out why the Hazaras have been targeted is because they're a peaceful community and they don't go out looking and starting fights. They just automatically get targeted. And they're not a minority. They make up 1/3 of Afghanistan. And so it's not that they're easy to target, they're just being targeted. Some of the reasons why I found were that the Hazara people tend to not have money like the other people, so therefore they are outcasted because they're poor. Because they've been persecuted so long that it's become a tradition leading down from generation to generation. And during wartime, they were communicating with Russia, or so thought that they were, but come to find out they weren't actually having any communication with Russia. But they didn't find that out until after they've been persecuted for so long, so it kept happening. To relate it to the Kite Runner, Amir first states that Hassan would grow up illiterate like most Hazaras, showing how the Hazaras are isolated and forced out of schools. Relating this to America and something that everybody can understand was back before the Civil War when the African Americans were forced out of school because they didn't fit in. The second thing that happened in the Kite Runner that proved that they were being isolated was when Asif declared that Afghanistan is the land of the passions. It always has been and always will be. There are true Afghans, pure Afghans, not this flat-nosed here. It's his people who pollute our homeland, our Wantana, their dirty blood. Afghanistan for passions, I say. That's my vision. The relation of that is, Asif is showing that he thinks that Hazara shouldn't be in Afghanistan anymore. And if Asif is showing that, his parents probably think that, and probably the large majority of the community thinks that. So he's the one saying it, but a lot of people feel the way that he's saying it. The last one that I chose to use was when Amir says, he thinks that he's not my friend, he's my servant. And he's thinking this because he's been raised to think this. Even though he was raised with Hassan, he was still taught throughout his community and his culture that he was better than Hassan and Hassan was below him. So therefore they should not be friends. Which goes back to the tradition that I started with earlier. And in Afghanistan, it's full of terror, in a place where nobody wants to be. But to stop this, we need to take a stand. And we need to let the whole world know that there is terror going on in Afghanistan, and it's not all left to be.
Well done. Good. Applause. just Viv, when you watch yours, if you would do the time form.
Have lived by an unwritten code of morals, guiding them through life, forcing them to protect people from their enemies, to honor their own families. Predominantly, the Pashtun people have lived for centuries between the Khorasan and Indian subcontinent at the crossroads of the great civilizations. And in Afghanistan, the Pashtuns are the major ethnic group in Afghanistan, numbering over 1.2 billion.
Just slide it. Oh, you gotta just slide it.
Pashto is the language of the Pashtun, which is one of the two official languages in Afghanistan. Examples of their language are words used for the parts of their code of morals, the Pashtun Wali. Milmiastia, meaning honor and hospitality. Tura, meaning courage. Badal, meaning revenge. And Gurat, meaning protection. Their code: once under the roof of the host, a guest shall neither be harmed nor surrendered to an enemy. This will be followed regardless of the relationship between the host and the guest. This code is for that of all people, even the enemies of the Pashtun. The religion: the Pashtun follow that of the Sunni Muslim religion. This religion is the largest branch of Islam and is the most practiced religion in the world. After the death of Muhammad, Muslims who accepted Abu Bakr as the first caliph became known as the people of tradition and unification. The Shia did not accept this religion, the Hazara. Conflict: the Pashtun and the Hazara people have had long rivalry dating back to the start of the Mongolian Empire, the Hazara descendants of the Mongols. They get their physical appearance from the Chinese appearance from their descendants. Their religious views also bring about conflict, since they worship two different branches of Islam. And so as I've come to see the Pashtun people seem to live by their moral code, or at least they try somewhat, but their rivalry with the Hazara people from their branching forms of Islamic religion and past history of conflicts has created a great amount of distrust and hatred, causing them to put aside their code.